The Great Wall of China, the Wudang Mountains, Jackie Chan, get off, and some beautiful Wulong Panda. If that isn't the Kung Fu Kid. Or is it Karate Kid?
Karate, Kung Fu, whatever.
Hey everyone, it's me Ranton, and I thought after covering the Shaolin Temple movie, a movie that means a lot to me, now might be a good time to share with you my insights on my second favorite Kung Fu movie. And before you say the Karate Kid is a blasphemous insult to the original, 1 out of 10, keep an open mind. I think the Karate Kid does a great job at getting people interested in Kung Fu through a mix of goofiness, cool fight and training scenes, and its gorgeous portrayal of Chinese culture, especially the city of Beijing. But more on that later. So how authentic is it? And how much of it is just for show? There is a lot to love here, and I don't think it got the credit it deserved. So let's break down its Kung Fu scenes. Let's go! You know how I always say, nobody trains like that. That's just for show. That's not the case here. These are young students, so not super high level, but I can tell from the movement that they are legit. Just look at that pubu. You can't fake that, and you can't fake that level of coordination. I always loved training in larger groups, but in the temple, that meant maybe 20 people max. There's no shortage of massive Kung Fu schools out there. Some people are under the impression that you find the best Kung Fu in the Shaolin Temple, and they're surprised when I tell them that's not actually the case. The Beijing Wushu Academy has the best Kung Fu practitioners in the whole world, and there's so many great schools out there. In fact, many monks and disciples use the Shaolin Temple as a career stepping stone to open their own schools down the line. Should I open a school? What do you think? Would you train under me? Would you call me
China, Mom, everybody knows Kung Fu.
The stereotype that all Chinese people know Kung Fu is about as true as saying all Germans know football. It's not absurd. It's very core to the culture, so many people come into contact with it at some point. Most people, of course, don't stick with it, but Chinese martial arts are very widespread in China. Duh. Almost every taxi driver that I met in Dongfeng, the city closest to the temple, has had some sort of Kung Fu training, even if they don't remember any of it. In a modern city like Beijing, it's much less the case though. Also, Kung Fu is badass, so it's not a harmful stereotype in my eyes. I love this transition here from the slower moving, spread apart beginners to the densely packed advanced students. They specifically chose movements that are faster and more high energy, and they're up on stage. They seem far away behind a window, so inaccessible, suggesting it's hard to achieve, which is true. What they're doing is Wai Bai Tui, called outside kick, followed by Wulong Panda. It's a fundamental basic that you find in some variation or another in almost every modern wushu form. It's a complete basic. A good way to practice it is against the wall with a stick over your shoulder to have your arms in one straight line. And this is called doesnt. Very common for performances because it has good, like, explosive energy, but rare to see in forms. This is funny. This dude, I had the opportunity to meet this actor during my last year in Shaolin, but for some reason, I told my master I wasn't interested. Back then, I didn't really understand the value of networking. I didn't care for it. Plus, I just knew it was going to be some stupid photo shoot and standing around for hours. I always hated that stuff, so I passed. Stupid me. Now I never met him. Right here, there could be a cool story about meeting that actor, but there isn't. So this master is obviously the antagonist in this movie, and he's very evil, you can see. The things they're saying are a bit absurd and comically sinister, like no mercy.
就算是对手倒在台上也不能停手，我们不能心软，在武馆里不能心软，比赛场不能心软，生活当中就更不能心软。对手吃苦那是活该。
That's definitely a bit over the top, but there are plenty of parallels to reality here. His tone, very typical for a Chinese master. Makes me feel like my master's standing right behind me. Very accurate. Many masters are like that, and telling your students to not feel pain or accept pain, also true. Some masters beat you if you cry, until you stop crying. Okay, beating your students with an open hand, I think, is fairly common, but there are preferable ways. Like, I've only experienced the stick, but getting beaten with a hand adds a layer of, like, personal humiliation that is very degrading, I think. The worst I've seen was a master hitting a student with a bunch of keys in the face, causing him to bleed. Or my wife, that practices the whip, got whipped in the face by a master so that she doesn't mess up the movement again. Scary stuff sometimes. There is tons of horrible abuse happening in these Kung Fu schools in China. Often very young masters take advantage of their positions of power. I've seen images of students in Tago school taking photos of their injuries, beaten to a pulp, hospitalized. It's pretty horrible. The students repeating things like a bunch of hypnotized sheep is a common teaching technique in China. It's all about repetition. There's one saying that you will find very commonly among Kung Fu students in large schools. They always chant, it means unity is strength. It's an old revolutionary slogan. This kid is the villain. He's the bully. That aside, it's nice to see they cast people with proper Kung Fu training. These are some good moves. I think it's a bit of freestyle since he's combining snake moves in the beginning with tiger at the end. Both styles I never got to learn, sadly. I learned praying mantis, eagle, and a little bit of leopard. That's cool too, right? It's no secret that I love Jackie Chan. He's an absolute legend and he made the best, funniest, most creative fight choreos in history. On top. When I saw this scene for the first time, it served as a stark reminder that he's not the youngest anymore and we gotta sort of manage our expectations. There are glimpses of short, interrupted badassness, but it's rare. It's very basic stuff, but the fight does serve a purpose. He doesn't hit them and he makes them hit each other, which coincides with the movie's messaging. It's good, it's good, it's good. This is a crazy fight. We got all sorts of things. We got kickboxing, ipponseonage, tomonage. I don't know what these throws are called in Shaijiao, unfortunately. I guess it's supposed to emulate a Sanda fight. It is extremely rare to find Sanda practice at Shaolin. It is even more rare to find proper sparring. And why would that be done? The chance of injury is way too high. And if you get injured, you can't perform. And if you can't perform, you can't spread Shaolin culture or make money. There's no incentive. But please don't misunderstand me. Sanda and Shaijiao are absolutely practiced extensively in China and in Kung Fu schools all around. The Shaolin Temple just has different priorities at the moment.
My Uncle Ramy used to date this Brazilian girl, and he learned jiu-jitsu and he taught some of it to me. And it's like locks and holds and stuff, so okay, attack me. See that? I could break it. I'm choosing not to.
Don't be like that, okay? Respect other martial arts, especially ones that are as effective as BJJ. Especially when Kung Fu, including all of the styles and applied combat techniques that I'm aware of, are severely lacking in any type of ground game. If there's one thing Kung Fu needs, it's BJJ.
Check it on. Check it off. Pick up your jacket! Pick up your jacket.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. I love this, and I also find this trope goofy at the same time. Let me explain.
Kung Fu lives in everything we do, Xiao and lives in how we treat people.
The messaging here is excellent. Seeing Kung Fu as a way of life, no argument there. That is a beautiful way of looking at it. If you guys go to any dojo, respect is always the most important rule. Why? Because if we learn things that can be dangerous, we should be responsible with that knowledge and who we teach it to. Nobody wants to give evil people more tools to victimize others. Unfortunately, this doesn't always map onto reality. There are many amazing martial artists out there that are scumbags because some people are scumbags. When Jackie says,
"That's not Kung Fu. That's a bad man teach them very bad things."
He may be a bad man, but he's teaching them proper martial arts. I can see it. They're good. What they do with that is a different story. When we spar with someone who is smug or too full of themselves, we want to poke holes in their skills and say, nah, they're really not that good. Well, if I trained that much, I'd be just as good and blah, 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 blah. Because we don't want to accept that someone with no respect can also be really great at martial arts. These things must go together. Sadly, in reality, they are separate. I've met incredibly skilled warrior monks. Most of them super nice, great people. A few, not so much. Were they any worse? No. They were amazing too, just not great people. Nonetheless, the message that martial arts should always be taught in combination with respect remains important, even though we know that things aren't that simple. Bad people can do real good Kung Fu. So this statement,
Kung Fu's not about fighting, Mom. It's about making peace with your enemy.
Many people want to make you believe that. And if it gets parents to send their kids to Kung Fu classes, then by all means, even the Shaolin Temple, when the cameras are rolling and they're doing marketing, say similar things. But its history and how masters teach when the cameras are off speak a very different language. I can agree with Jackie when he says,
best fights are the ones we avoid.
But it doesn't change the fact that martial arts teach you martial arts. They're ultimately for fighting. There's no peaceful kick or peaceful punch. Now, the trope that Dre has been practicing Kung Fu this whole time by picking up and dropping his jacket, is suddenly able to do all these moves, works wonderfully as a story device, but is completely removed from reality, of course. Sure, putting on a jacket resembles a movement in Kung Fu, so that's not enough. That movement also isn't very complicated. You can teach that within 10 minutes. And it makes no sense to spend that much time on it. I understand that it serves the message, but I did just want to mention it.
Qi, internal energy, the essence of life. It moves inside of us, flows through our bodies.
Very common to have Qi explained this way. I always prefer more grounded explanations that avoid unnecessary mysticism. Qi is your breathing. Sounds simple, but is incredibly difficult to control and takes many years to master.
Are we there yet?
Should.
I love that they chose the Wudang Mountains as the place where Jackie learned Kung Fu. They're really beautiful. Much more so than the Sungshan Mountains, where the Shaolin Temple is. Don't tell them, but it's kind of true. I do wonder what guided their decision-making process here, though. The Shaolin Temple is way more famous, and it's the go-to place for things like this, being the birthplace of Kung Fu. But maybe that's exactly why they wanted to avoid it. It's maybe too mainstream or already too well-known internationally, whereas the Wudang Mountains are a bit more niche. They're spicy. I think it was a great choice. The Wudang Mountains are home to many Taoist monasteries. Some are male and female mixed even. Some practice practice a type of Tai Chi that also originates from the Shaolin Temple. And when I say Tai Chi, a lot of you probably think of the very slow stuff that you see old people practice, and that's part of it. By the way, in Shaolin, we have very similar, very slow forms like Roquan or Mianquan. But anyway, some styles of Tai Chi are very powerful, very difficult, on par with the hardest Shaolin Kung Fu forms. It's very impressive, and I love the subtle and not so subtle differences in their styles. I personally find it more graceful as opposed to Shaolin, which is very... One is fire, one is water. That's oversimplified, but it makes sense a little bit. Also in the Wudang Mountains, they wear blue clothes, and in Shaolin, it's gray or reddish brown. The elements. Okay, I've been at enough filming sets to be able to say with a fair amount of confidence that this is done for cameras. I'm pretty certain they don't actually meditate there daily, especially if tourists can walk past it. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. In the Shaolin Temple, the actual meditation happens in a very secluded dark room, far away from prying eyes. Oh man. Yo, this looks like such a nightmare to me. The Shaolin Temple has the Damo cave and the Damo statue right behind it, and we had to run up and down at least once a week, and that was always the hardest training. Apart from having to do frog jumps. Frog jumps, the worst. But that was nothing compared to this. These mountains look much steeper, much higher. I wonder if they also make their students run up and down. If so, I feel your pain. I know that Wudang forms often include a lot of holding your leg in place, and that requires so much strength and flexibility. Big respect. What a cool scene. I love it. In reality, laughably stupid. It's got nothing to do with Kung Fu whatsoever. Animal forms do exist, but they come from observing them, drawing inspiration from their movements, and then making them work for fights and performances. Not being face to face or trying to be a mirror. Try that with a tiger, I dare you. Also, where does the snake come from? How did it get there? Why does she do this? What if she loses balance? She's gonna die. It creates a very cool wow effect for kids, which is the point, so I don't mind. Just don't question it too much. I love the training scenes. Some of it is very relatable, some of it is a bit goofy. This stretch is absolutely traumatic for me. My master did this to me once. I've never in my life let out a more animalistic scream. The pain was excruciating. Every other time he wanted to do this, I pretended to go to the bathroom. I did it once, never again. Sorry. Once you're that low, very close to full split, you just need to be pushed down into it a few times. Hurts like hell, but that's the way. Train responsibly. I love me a good leg sweep. I'm so jealous that they got to film this on the Great Wall of China. He's practicing Wubuquan, which isn't even a real form. It includes all the basic stances like Mabu, Gongbu, Xubu, Xiebu, and Pubu. So it's very important for beginners. His Ulong Panda is getting quite good. And he can even do a Shenfengjiao with a stick. Getting better. Good job, Jaden. I love that at the very end, he does the same as the snake lady. It's so silly, but so wholesome. My favorite part is when the Bat Master yells, "Da Xiachi!" Slow-mo knockout. Damn. You know, at the end of the day, I can talk about why the Karate Kid's portrayal of Kung Fu is very effective all day. But that isn't the real reason why I love this movie. This could have been a movie about Jaden Smith learning table tennis for all I care. I love this movie because of the way it portrays Beijing. And this is honestly the main reason why I wanted to make this video. I watched this movie for the first time when it came out in theaters in 2010. I was 16 and still in school. Going to the Shaolin Temple wasn't on the menu back then. And although I said last time that the Shaolin Temple movie put that thought in my head, the Karate Kid probably contributed a decent amount. I had just come home from visiting my family in Beijing, and seeing it again on the big screen was somehow magical for me. I had never seen a movie that showed modern day Beijing from the perspective of a Western kid who arrives for the first time. Although it's not entirely the same with me, I felt like my experience and my impressions of China, and particularly with the city of Beijing, were for the first time actually and accurately represented. The Air China stewardesses, the Beijing airport, the people holding signs with names on them reminded me of looking for my grandparents and my aunt and uncle in the crowd. The long ride from the airport to the city, him staring out the window at all these weird buildings just like I would do, the bustling Beijing Hutung. I still to this day have not seen any other movie that so accurately mirrors my feelings towards Beijing. I love that city with all my heart, and I have only positive memories of it. My feelings towards the Shaolin Temple, on the other hand, are much more complicated in comparison. I understand that to most of you, these aren't convincing arguments to like this movie, because it is very personal and nostalgic for me. I'm just trying to make you understand where I'm coming from. And I'm sure you have places like that too. Places that remind you of a certain time in your life. Nothing can take that away from you. And seeing that in a big movie production was mind-blowing to me. Yeah, that's it. My only critique of this movie is that it ends too soon. I wanted to go on for like 10 more hours, but everything has to come to an end. So does this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Watch the Karate Kid movie again. I think it's on Netflix. Watch it with an open heart. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.